I don't hear him. Oh, are we on now?
We are on now.
Oh, okay. Now I hear you. Now I hear.
There we go. There we go.
For a second, and I was like, "Oh, you can't hear me?"
Yeah. So I said in the car, and I told you this, Pierre.
Yeah.
I was like, I hit the button, and I said, "Call Pierre Nugent," and the car goes, "Calling Pierre Nugent." Like,
hey, wow. and they say AI is going to take over the world.
Yeah, we've got some lead time, but I'll tell you, I tweeted this weekend. There are a ton of Google AI commercials during the Olympics, and a ton of Meta AI commercials during the Olympics.
Yes.
My wife is an Olympics fanatic. I thought I really liked them. I thought I really liked them. Pierre, I don't think we have anything on her.
Well, I would be surprised if we did. I just got done watching the USA men getting a huge win in water polo just now, and but I doubt we're. I love watching the Olympics. Don't get me wrong, I really do. But yeah, I doubt we're as big as your wife.
I mean, she was fired up for our bronze medal archery match the other day, like mixed archery.
Yeah,
yeah. Like
no doubt.
That chick can't see clearly. Like we got it. We got this. Talking noise to the Korean team. I mean, it wasn't all of her Kansas fan comes out for these Olympics.
I love it.
Watching us lose in swimming, the ones that I say we lose. We medal in almost every event in swimming, but not winning gold. Look, I cannot tell you how much disdain she has for Leon Marchand.
Yes.
Just because he's now out there, dominating golds away from us in overall medal count. So.
Right. It's funny because it's funny that you bring up the Olympics. I was having this debate with friends of mine just yesterday, and it's still continuing right now in our text conversation. Paul, out of curiosity, what would you consider to be the signature event of the Summer Olympics? There's not really a correct answer, in my opinion. There are plenty of wrong answers. But in your opinion, what do you think is the signature event of the Summer Olympics?
It just happened yesterday, the 100-meter dash.
Correct. That is the answer that I had as well.
And look, I'll even say it's both 100-meter dashes. Both of them.
Yeah, fair.
The 100-meter dash and the men and the women. Now, granted, the men is going to be a little bit more popular, although, good on St. Lucia. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I think that's, especially for Americans, and that is one in the men. We haven't won in 20 years because of 3 Usain Bolts and a rando Italian. So a rando Italian is a podcast I'm going to do one day.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for that one.
I just show you how to make chicken cutlets.
I was just shocked at the number. Personally, my favorite event during the Summer Olympics is the swimming. I love the swimming.
Yeah, me too.
I will watch the swimming all day long. But I've always felt the men's 100-meter dash is the signature event of the Summer Olympics, and I'm shocked to see some of these friends of mine saying Team USA men's basketball, like the gold medal game. There's a case I think that can be made for the women's team gymnastics, the all around. I think the case can be made for that, no doubt. But I was just a little surprised. Is all. That's all.
Yeah. No. I'm. Look, there are big events for us. I was a huge fan of the 1992 Dream Team.
Yeah.
I was a huge fan of the 92 Dream Team. I've enjoyed it subsequently less over the years, although now that the NBA is much more of an international product, we do have, I don't want us to lose, but I'd like to know that we have a chance to. So I think that that's better.
Yeah.
And I understand that this is the way it's going to be as long as they keep rolling out their pros, which is what they were doing, and we were rolling out with college kids, then we have to roll out our pros. I just don't think that's necessarily good for certain, we can roll out the pros in tennis and golf and stuff like that, and there's not such a gap, between the talent level.
Yeah.
If you watched golf yesterday, about 7 different countries had a shot at the gold before Scottie Scheffler won it,
Right.
And so that's one that, there's not, but The only time we've lost since 1992 was the laziest team in the history of basketball that got together.
06, 08,
08,
or
yeah,
08,
yeah. 08.
We took bronze, yeah.
Yeah, so we took the bronze in 08, and that was just a bunch of dudes who didn't care, and then we brought in Kobe in 2012, and he whipped these dudes into shape, right? If you've ever seen that Netflix doc, it's incredible because it's basically everybody talking about, we were out partying, we're in Greece or whatever, or wherever they were getting ready and playing the prelims, and they're walking back into the hotel at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. They're getting on the elevator. Kobe's coming down to work out, and then LeBron and those guys are like, we don't get this. Like, this is not, we're not doing, Kobe's here for work. We need to match his energy.
Yep.
And it's my favorite Kobe Bryant story ever. Kyle Visser says the woman that won the bicycle race that wasn't a cyclist like 8 years ago. That was a great one. And of course, again, it's a USA gold. And then, what's amazing about that race was she just took off, and then like the three behind her were like, well, we don't have that.
Yeah.
We can't. Yeah. I'm not, like, they looked at each other like, are you gonna? And we're like, what do you mean? It's been 49 miles. Are you nuts?
And for me, it's always like when it comes to the basketball and even soccer and tennis, I'm a little less, although I have a date in about 45 minutes to watch the motherland, Egypt, go up in the semifinals against France in soccer. So I will be watching that. But those kind of sports that we see very often in the U.S., whether it's the NBA season or soccer season or in tennis and all that, I'm less interested in those because I don't get to watch water polo all that often. And that's a great sport. And I don't get to see track and field all that often. And that's a great sport. And some of these, I've got a split screen right now on my television showing me 4 different things going on right now. One of them includes synchronized swimming and field hockey. And you would think I was born in Southern California as a synchronized swimming expert with the way I'm watching this thing right now.
Oh, hey, like everybody all of a sudden becomes experts in these sports.
That's
like,
right.
You ever sit around with a group of people at the bar during the Olympics, and then somebody's like, no, man. Really in fencing, it's all about the parry. And you're like, shut the F up. You didn't know what this was a week ago. You just saw it, and then you saw Snoop Dogg talking about it. You thought it was funny. So you started watching it and kind of getting into it because it's different. It's not something we see all the time. But as soon as the Olympics are over, you're not going to go to internationalfencing.com and live stream the events. You're not doing that.
And that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
You don't get to see it all that often. It comes on. It's something new. That's what makes it fun. I love it.
Yeah. Beach volleyball is one of my favorites.
Yes.
Our women's team had a thriller against Italy yesterday in the quarters, in the round of 16. I know there's a quarter, but in the quarterfinals, round of 16. And then our men's team has Chase Budinger, former Arizona star basketball player.
Former Minnesota Timberwolf, yes.
Yeah. And what's funny to me about that is the volleyball players are some of the best athletes in all of the games, and they do amazing things, but they've never seen anything like Chase Budinger before.
No.
He's the NBA, he's just a guy, and beach volleyball, he's like, no, please go play in the NBA again. We need you to.
Yes.
We don't. Because even the tallest guy in beach volleyball is 6'4" normally.
Right.
Tall guys, but they're short guys. There's no definite build for a beach volleyball player. It's really more about your overall athleticism.
Yeah.
But to have a guy that, no matter how tall you are, he's got a 50-50 chance of blocking your best stuff is got to be nerve-wracking. And not even because clearly he's an Olympic level volleyball player. Just God made him that much taller and can do those things. You're like, well, this is not right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been playing against guys my size.
Yeah. There you got to be looking at it. You said about 6'4", maybe 6'5" is about as tall as I've seen in beach volleyball. But then, when Chase Budinger walks in, what if they had Bull on the next team, next year, 4 years? Wouldn't that be something on the volleyball team?
Yeah, you know what I would do if I was any of these sports, I would go find the lower rung of the professional sports of guys who are really good athletes, but they're not they're playing in Turkey like basketball players that are playing in Turkey being like, listen, I can guarantee you the same money. I'm going to teach you how to do this other sport. The other thing I would do is if I was the UFL or the CFL, it doesn't really work this way in the NFL anymore. There's no more Bob Hayeses. Occasionally you'll see a sprinter go and play, in the NFL.
Yeah.
But if I was in the UFL, what I would do is I would find the guys who are coming in like 12th in the 100, like not making the qualifying and being like, look, you're never going to beat Noah Lyles. You're never going to beat whoever Jamaica throws out there. It is their national sport, is track and field.
Yeah.
That is their thing. But what I could teach you how to do is return kicks, and we're going to pay you $100,000 a year. And land sakes alive, now you've got something. That's what I would do. I would be, if I was working for The Rock right now in the UFL, I'd be post up in Paris at track and field. I'd be looking for shot putters who can't crack the top 10. I'd be looking for sprinters like those, because look, they're still premier Olympic athletes, but are you really, let's talk Turkey here. You're not winning a medal. Like, you can come and I don't care if you come and represent your country all 4 years if you want to do this, but would you like to come and make a steady paycheck doing something else?
We saw this with Al Davis, too. James Jett is the prime example. The wide receiver for the Raiders back in the day, lined up opposite side Tim Brown. I mean, he was an Olympic sprinter. I don't remember how he fared in the Olympics. I just knew he was an Olympic-level sprinter. But, I mean, that was Al Davis for you. I mean, speed at every turn. That's what he would be on the hunt for. Mm-hmm. So, I agree with you entirely. I mean, just because you qualify for the Olympics, you got to run in these heats. Even if you don't make the finals, if you don't medal, it doesn't suddenly mean that you're a bum. I mean, obviously you're good enough to get there, and that means something. That talent and that athletic ability has to translate over into something else too, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you a problem I've had in these Olympics, and you love the swimming and I love the swimming.
Yeah.
There's a problem for me with our swimmers.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can figure out what it is.
Well, I have certainly been frustrated watching some of these events. Yes.
No, it's just in any other walk of life outside the Olympics, given where these people train and where they go to school,
yes,
and who their coach is, I would not do that. Like, I've even in a couple of occasions, a couple of Olympics ago, when they had a swimmer that I kind of hoped that we sent to another country, and Ryan Lochte, because he's just a gigantic douche nozzle. It's hard for me to cheer for the Gators on the swim team. And it doesn't even make me mad at Florida, because they clearly were smart enough to be the hub of Olympic swimming because they're the best swim program. It makes me very mad at my alma mater that we let that happen.
Yeah.
You know what? It's NIL time. Whoever the next Katie Ledecky is that's not in college yet, if I was in charge of that, she'd be coming to Florida State. Like, the next Caleb Dressel is not going to the swamp. He's coming to Tallahassee. That's what I want. I sent that message out to a bunch of my friends, and they were like, as long as we're better in football, they can have whatever else they want. And I'm like, no, guys, no. we need to eliminate them. We want them to be like, look at you're in the glory days of Caleb Dressel. That's over now.
Yeah. Listen, I will even admit, if memory serves me right, and I think it does, but I'm more than happy to be wrong on this case. And for anybody watching, just put your phone away right now. Don't try to just hear me out for a quick second. I believe I heard Donald Trump even once say that, even kind of comment on the fact, why do we have like all of these superior athletes from overseas come over here and train and use our equipment and use all of our facilities and all of our world-class stuff to train to get them to the best that they can, and then go represent another country and beat us in the Olympics. Now, whether you want to consider that xenophobic or whatever it is, let's put that to the side right now. On face value, it makes a little bit of sense to me. Like, wait a minute. What? But like you, I can't be mad at the college universities for finding these athletes and giving these kids scholarships to represent your school. So it's like, where is the happy medium here we need to find? Yeah.
Again, you put me in charge of recruiting people all over the world for whatever sport I need to for FSU. And when they win a gold medal for Kazakhstan, I'm not going to be that sad about it because they'll be winning events for me. You know, I'd go get those 2 Ukrainian girls that finished, you know, gold, silver in the pole vault the high jump yesterday.
Yeah.
And be like, all right, listen, you know what's better than Kiev? Tallahassee.
Yeah, no kidding.
Do you want
on top of it too?
Putin's nowhere close to invading Tallahassee. I'll just say.
I would venture to guess if you went around every major Division I's men's and women's tennis teams, I would venture to guess over 50% of them would be athletes of a different country.
Over 60. It's more than that. When back in the day, one of my side hustles was doing, I think you probably know this, doing PA for Baylor sporting events.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they when baseball was full time for a while, but sometimes if they had like a big event, they'd be like, hey, we need somebody to come do this. I had a ton of friends that were SIDs. They're like, well, Paul, do you want to make $75 for 2 hours of work? And I'd be like, absolutely, I do. Beer is not free. So I went to go to Georgia was playing Baylor in tennis at the indoor facility. And they gave me Georgia's roster. And I went to Coach Knoll.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, Matt, who's their coach that I can ask about these names? And he's like, oh, well, he used to work for me. He's right over there. So I was like, okay, go over and talk to him. So I go over and I'm like, hey, I've got to announce these names. And let's just pretend that I never spent time in the Eastern Bloc. Because this is tough. And I don't want to be disrespectful by going, Goran, you know, basically it runs out. So then I'd have to go, like, I went to each one of them, like, wrote it out phonetically. But then, like, you get, you know, the deeper you get into that part of the world, the thicker the accents are. And I felt like such a dick because I was like, you got to say it again. Let's just, I'm an American. I'm in the South. I'm sorry. And then you have to only announce them for singles and then 45 minutes to an hour later for doubles. So only had to do it twice. So it's an easy set. Like I thought easy $75. Honestly, give me an all-day track event.
Right.
Like just reading that for $25 less, it would have been way better than me sitting. And it was on the ground too. I'm just holding a mic, standing in a corner, like sitting like this. I just pantomime holding a mic when I have one in front of me. But Jonathan, you know, and like I'm just like sweating absolute bullets. I've done no physical activity other than talk, and it's just I'm so nervous.
You thought it was going to be the easiest $75 you ever made for 2 hours, and look what it turned out to be.
No, the only thing I can compare it to is Euless Trinity is a high school that is in Fort Worth area, and they have a great many Tongan immigrants that go there. They, in fact, before the game, they do that's really awesome. They do a haka dance, like that's their warm up, and they teach all the American kids how to do it. You can tell which ones are the American kids. Just like the few, like, you know, I say American, but like, you know, Texas kids. Yeah, right. The few that are there, like, guess which one is Craig Jones? 71. I can tell. But you have to, like, if you're doing a high school game before Euless Trinity, you do have to call up and go through their names of their coach phonetically. And sometimes I've been on the phone with him, and he'll just call down the hall, and he'd be like, Ule! Come here. How you say your last name, bud? And then he'll say it, and I write it down. And, you know, that was also hard because that's 3 hours of a broadcast.
Yeah.
And then,
God, yeah.
Yeah. The hard thing about that is sometimes you're like, all right, tell me who 15 is. And he's like, don't worry about it. Like, oh, is he hurt? Like, is he hurt? No, might as well be. He's not going to play. He's just full of He's just full of heart.
God bless him.
But not full of legs and arms.
Well,
so we're not going to use him all that much. When we come back, let's talk Big Ten with Pierre. He was at Big Ten Media Days last week. Was that last week or 2 weeks ago?
Last week. Last week
in Indianapolis. He was there. We'll talk about so out of SEC Media Days, you get a real like douchey vibe. Like, okay, we know you're good. Big Ten, I don't know where to put my finger on like how proud they are of the league compared to the SEC. And it's because maybe they don't have as many, but we'll talk about that plus some of the things he saw. This is 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
So, Pierre, I do wish you were here with us sometimes because you can hear our off-air discussions. And my wife asked me randomly last night of Garrett, Jack, and Emery, the guys who are here, who my favorite is. And I know you've never met any of these guys.
Right,
but she like, girls think of it like it's funny how like girls have to like tear off their best friends but never tell them what tier they're in. Pierre, you and I know exactly what tier we're on. It doesn't need to be spoken, and we're good. Like, you know, like outside of just one of us flat out insulting one another, like with intent to harm, like there's nothing that could change where we are. Like we've been close for a long time, but we don't need to put kind of a label on it, like an airplane. Like, oh, well, you know, but girls will have, well, Deidre, she's in coach. She's a friend. I want her on the trip, but she's not sitting in first class, you know,
right?
Like that's the kind of thing. It comes this way because of bridesmaids. Because if a girl says, I will have 20 bridesmaids, and then she has to figure out which order they walk in, you know, based on how close they are to her. And 20's way too many, but I'm just giving that. A dude will be like, 20 guys? No problem.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
I got it. You know, no big deal. And they're like, I thought you weren't even really that good of friends with Doug. And like, what? We talked 5 years ago. It was awesome. We had beers.
Yeah.
It's good. We don't have to talk every day. I don't know. What's the problem? Yeah, it's normal.
It's funny that you bring up the tiers that the women seem to have in terms of, like, this is one thing I'm probably going to teach my teenage son. I'll be like, son, if you want to have some real fun, scratch off a piece of paper and write a friends power ranking list and pretend like you're one of the girls in the class and just kind of leave it laying around. Yeah. And say it's like, oh, that's Emily. Just say, whose is this? Like, oh, that's Emily's power rankings friends list. And just walk out the classroom and watch a nuclear bomb just explode in the classroom and just smile as you walk out.
The movie is not called Mean Boys. It's called Mean Girls, right? No. Okay, that's not. Like, it's not called that. So she was like, so I was like, well, like, Emery's my favorite. And she's like, but you and Garrett are so close. I'm like, yeah, we are. She goes, would Garrett think I was like, no,
it's Emory.
Emory's his favorite too. Like,
Absolutely.
this is how we work here. It's fine. She's like, what about Jack? He's no one's favorite. He actively tries not to be. So he's happy in his own thing. Like, we don't need to tear it off. Like, if you really want to know, look, if I said that, Garrett's not going to go home to Anna, his wife, and be like, oh, I'm not Paul's favorite. He's going to be like, Paul and I have the same favorite. It's Emory. That's another thing that Garrett and I have in common, thus enhancing our friendship.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
You ever, like, you've probably seen those internet memes of the couple in the bed together with the man with his back turned to his wife, and his wife is like looking over her shoulder. And you've seen a bunch of different memes. Like, I bet you he's thinking about like other women, and he's like, what was Michael Jordan's career average in 1991? Like, that kind of stuff. That's really, I love that one because it's like so true. That's like absolutely, it feels like it's absolutely real life, that meme.
Yeah. No, I mean, how many times has your girlfriend come to you and said, what are you thinking about? And you're like, I mean, honestly, not much.
Yeah.
Like I could, at any given point, you could say, hey, Paul, what's on your mind? I'm thinking about how I could make a sandwich of both like meatball and pepperoni, where I bite the meatball, the pepperoni doesn't slide with it. Yeah. Like that's the kind of engineering I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And then,
you constantly have like Shark Tank ideas in your mind. Cause like, I mean, you watch the show, sometimes you're like, God, why didn't I think of that? And you're starting to think like, how can I quit my job and make millions of dollars by preventing that piece of salami from there's got to be a device or something that I could prevent sliding it from outside. Because the last thing I want to do when I'm eating a sandwich is see it fall apart. And now I've got mayo and mustard on like the sides of my pinky fingers. Who wants that?
Look, I would like, and will be part of my presidential platform, I will have NASA work on a French fry box that keeps them at the temperature they were put in at.
Yes.
So that when you go get fries, when you come home, they're still hot. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm tired of being accused of not like, trying to help solve the world's problems.
Well, look, a French fry box that keeps fries hot, for, let's just say 30 minutes before it drops, because that should give you an appropriate amount of time to get home.
Reasonable. If I were you, I would copyright that now. Before somebody steals that out there on the internet.
Now, granted, the best idea I've come up with is freezing the space-time continuum inside of a capsule and then putting the fries in that so they live in the perpetual state of where they were made. The problem is I think that technology could be dangerous in the wrong hands.
Fair. I still would like to see it, but fair, yes. Yeah.
I mean, just... by the way, this is the worst episode of Phineas and Ferb ever. But Pierre, you were at Big Ten Media Days.
Yes.
In Indianapolis. It's funny, my mother was there the week before at a very large Catholic convention. So if you found like any rosaries just sitting around, that was probably from that.
Okay, there you go. I could have handed her my crucifix right there that hangs above the door. So
Yeah. So she was there at the big.
As a Catholic, I wasn't invited to this. Should I be concerned?
I don't know. Believe me, she invited me.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
she invited me. But we have talks about how my level of Catholicism has waned over the years.
Yeah, it ebbs and flows.
Yes,
it does.
Yeah, it does. Like it depends on what's in the news cycle. To be quite honest with you.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I haven't stopped believing what I believe. I'm just not trustworthy of the people who tell me that, a lot of the time. That's where I am. But you were there, Big Ten Media Days, and I'm curious as to, because they always roll these things out. The ACC had this really stupid thing of like, we have the best non-conference schedule in the country. And you're like, well, good for you, but what about that's only a small portion of your games. Right. That's 33% of your games. What about the other 67% that are in conference? What is the Big Ten with their now 18 teams? What's their swagger like from your perspective?
I think the impression that I got is this is going to take a little bit of getting used to, much like the new kickoff rule in the NFL, which is not new to me as a former XFL viewer. But it's if the overall feeling is like, yeah, this is going to get a little bit of taking used to. I know that there was conversations in regard to the revenue sharing ideas that will be kicked down the road that are going to be discussed later in the future, not in the immediate future right now anyway. But, that's the impression that I got. Dan Lanning and Oregon, I think, strike me as a team and a program, and for good reason, that doesn't care what conference they're in. They feel that they can come in and whoop your butt, and they don't care who knows it, and they're happy to let you know about it. So I'm the bravado of Oregon, if you will, resonated with me a little bit. I was like, okay, you're the new kid in the conference, but evidently you don't care about being liked, and that's fine. I don't care about that either. This is not, we're not out here to make friends. We're out here to win football games. So that's the kind of what everybody is kind of, it all has a feeling of new and fresh, and like, yeah, we've got these Pac-12 teams that are coming in. It is going to look weird, especially on the basketball court when you see Big Ten across the hardwood at UCLA. But that's kind of the impression that I get. But I mean, Oregon was a team that I kind of leaned back, had a little bit of a wry smile. I was like, okay, all right. I can get with this. It's a little bold. It's probably a little bolder than I would be, but I get it. I get it.
Oregon, I think this is Oregon or Ohio State's conference to lose.
No
right
question.
Now.
No question.
I do think that Michigan is going to hang around a lot longer, and we need to get into that in just a second because obviously new revelations there in the draft of the letter, which I wonder, like, okay, if that's just the draft of the letter coming out, like, what are they going to shave off to make it really flow? But Michigan will hang around, although now some of that to me is a little bit called into question, depending on how long they deal with this NCAA thing that's going to hang over their heads. Second, Penn State will hang around. I don't know about USC. I just don't. I think they're probably a top 20 team at their peak, but maybe not a team that's going to really contend for the playoff. And then after that, I think there's a whole lot of unknown. Like, what is Wisconsin? What is Nebraska this year? What is Iowa now that Iowa doesn't just get to play Minnesota and teams that play like them when they have to play in Oregon or in Ohio State in back-to-back – I don't know if it's back-to-back weeks, but they're going to have to play teams like that. Washington who will not be as good as they were last year, but I think they'll still probably be a tough out. And then UCLA who – probably has, even though they're in a new coach and they've been kind of up and down, probably can match them athlete for athlete at Iowa.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I know that here in Minnesota, I cover the Gophers. I mean, they've got a stretch where they have to play. They have Iowa, Michigan, USC, UCLA, and then they have Penn State toward the end of the year before Wisconsin. So what you asked me kind of like what kind of strikes me with this conference, I think the answer to this is probably, but my question is like, is there a middle class of this conference? I don't think there is a middle class of this conference, in my opinion, because I know you're probably going to throw your Iowas and your Wisconsins in there with the addition of these four. They're probably your middle class kind of schools. But I mean, when you're looking at the Minnesotas, the Purdues, the Illinois, I'm thinking to myself, how in the world are these teams going to be able to compete now? How? In the world of NIL, PJ Fleck talks to me about this all the time. He understands the magnitude that faces his program in terms of now competing in it. It's almost feeling, I don't want to describe it this way, but it almost feels like running a mom and pop shop in the world of corporations. And how are you going to be able to get people to realize, hell, Minneapolis is the 15th largest demographic in America. There's plenty of Fortune 500 companies here. And yet they have a hard time trying to find donors and trying to find somebody that understands the gravity of the situation in terms of trying to keep them relevant in the college football landscape.
And part of their problem is that a ton of those people in Minneapolis in these gigantic corporations are not Gophers.
Correct.
They've been shipped in there because they work for these gigantic companies.
Best Buy, Target, all that. Yeah.
For people who don't know, like when I found it striking that, when you land at the airport in Minneapolis, they have instructions in Japanese. because there's so many Japanese companies that are like their U.S. home is in Minneapolis. And so, well, I mean, if that's a Japanese company, well, unless one of them comes over and really falls in love with Gopher Athletics, you know, I mean, you're not getting money out of that. You know, Memphis has been very fortunate now that FedEx has decided to step up and fund a lot of their athletic department, their NIL, and everything that's going on, because Fred Smith, the CEO of FedEx, has an affection for Memphis. But he also didn't have that much of an affection until recently when he could put real money into it. So even then, like, you can have a company that's housed there, but if you don't have a relationship or it's not mutually beneficial to the city or something, well, I mean, what's going to happen? So, yeah, he's swimming upstream maybe more than a lot of programs of that size. It's not like Minnesota's a little tiny athletic department.
That is not.
But you can feel that way compared to Ohio State, who's in your own conference, who as soon as all this stuff was legal, they just had to figure out how to funnel the money, and they did it wrong for a couple years. But now, if you look at that roster, I don't think they're having trouble finding the money to get these guys. You know, Caleb Downs didn't come because he loves the weather.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, Darius Taylor is going to be Minnesota's starting tailback, and he won Big Ten Freshman of the Week, I believe, 3 times last year. I mean, he is no doubt Minnesota's best player, at least on offense. And go in the offseason, everybody was very, very concerned that he was going to leave. And he's from Michigan. So we all thought at some point or another, if he gets the opportunity to go play for Michigan or Michigan State or what have you, he probably is going to take it. Somebody stepped up, Dinkytown athletes here. Somebody stepped up, and he's getting paid. He's coming back for another year. But therein lies the problem. It almost kicks the problem down the road. Another year. You're going to have the same problem again next year. There's and you're not Michigan and you're not Ohio State, where the name and the brand of Michigan, Ohio State still has clout. I know that's a different world than NIL money now. That's really going to end up being the thing that talks. But Michigan and Ohio State are still the names that have clout. And if you're a guy like Darius Taylor, even though you're going to have a phenomenal season at Minnesota, be the number one guy at Minnesota, but if you want to go home and like if you get paid a little bit more over there, this is a year. These are year-to-year contracts. They're year-to-year contracts. And for those teams, Minnesota, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, what have you, this is really the world that they are living in. And my heart goes out to them. It really does, because this is a very difficult situation to navigate.
All right, let's talk about Michigan for a second. And for a second, I mean more than that. Sherrod Moore, and they're looking at I don't have the column in front of me right now, but 58, or is it 85? 58 games that were scouted.
I believe it's 58.
Yeah, 58 games that were scouted. It was Connor Stallions in disguise on the Central Michigan sideline. And they made some changes to their staff a few days ago, kind of abruptly, which leads me to believe that Central Michigan knows exactly who did that. That may not be the case, but it makes sense if it is. Sherrod Moore deleted a trove of text messages between him and Stallions. Connor Stallions left his call sheets with a player and said, hey, bring them to here afterwards. He deleted hard drive. He took hard drives with him. He was housing it all at Michigan's facility before all this came down. And what I always wondered, and I understand that there are varying levels of this that people can make maybe more big of a deal of than how it was, but their record after he got hired was like 28-3 or something ridiculous like that. Yeah. So it's really hard to say that he had no effect on it. And it's there was all this plausible deniability. Like, look, they were trying to play look, he was just a valuable member of our staff. He was good at what he did, and we trusted him with the information. We don't know how he got it. Like, that's where I get mad of like, all right, like the Astros kind of did the same thing of like, well, a lot of people are doing it. And you're like, yeah, okay, we'll get to them next, but we're talking about you now. Mm-hmm. Just admit that you did it and be like, all right, you got me. All right, we're sorry we did it. We try to gain another advantage. It happens. We'll take our medicine. But much like the Astros, Michigan like to employ the tactic of, no, you're the asshole.
Right,
like,
yes.
No, it's you. You're the ones that probably, like, it's your problem for asking. Like, no, this happened. We have questions. You can choose to answer them how you will, but don't be mad at us because all of a sudden this is out there. It's not fake. It's a real thing that happened. Please illuminate us on how it gets this far down the road.
Right.
And
yeah.
So.
And one thing that I think if everybody reads the article, I think one thing that I know the major takeaway for me is like, even if you're not in trouble with, the federal or the state government, if you delete text messages and somebody really, really, really wants to find them, they still have a way of finding them with, forensic evidence and all that stuff. Like it's just, you can't get away with anything. That's, again, I'm going to tell my child whenever he or she comes into this world, listen, you live in a world now where privacy is next to non-existent. It's all digital. You have a digital footprint. There are cameras everywhere, whether you like it or not. And you can't get away with anything. So to think that you have the audacity to think that you can get away with these things still baffles me to this day, knowing and there's countless examples left and right of nobody gets away with something like this. No. Nobody. It's like, so the thought process is like, well, it's a kind of an interpretation of the rule. Maybe I misinterpreted the rule. You're in charge of a major D1 football program.
Yeah.
I think you know what the difference between right and wrong is. You can try to fudge a few words here and there, maybe, I guess, to try to fit your narrative. But at the end, you know what you're doing.
Yeah. And the other thing is everybody is doing it. Okay, that's something we need to investigate and maybe change some rules from is if this is more widespread. The point is everybody can get caught. You got caught. So I can't go to court and, if I robbed a bank, my defense can't be like, there's so many bank robbers, guys. There's so many. Like what? Like there's so many. Like, no.
Like from a credit union, too. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
When we caught you, we'll do the same thing when we catch them. It doesn't matter that you're caught. You just got caught before the other ones. So, me saying, like, so many people rob banks, dude. Like, what are you even on about this? Like, no, that's not an intellectually honest argument.
There, and you said it to the the attitude of it is like, how dare you make an example out of me? What?
Yeah.
Like, why what did I? It's not that big of a deal. What did I do? I mean, like, yeah, this happens far too often, and I'm starting to get more and more annoyed with every occurrence because it's like, this is not the incidents that happen to some of these coaches. Some of these administrative staffs across the country, they're big news. They make national news. I know they did not go under your nose, and I know that they're probably fresh in your mind. So when 2 years goes by and you think you can try to get away with something that, the other guy tried to do, please sit down to me and explain your thought process of why you think you would get away with it.
Yes. It's look, every creepy dude who sent a picture of his genitals to somebody. Yeah. Look, there's no going back from it. You did it. You knew you were going to get caught. And you knew that somebody was going to see it. And the fact that you even thought that anybody wanted to makes you weird in the first place. Correct. But yeah, like you can't just do something and then your excuse is so many people do it. It's not, they weren't caught. And look, even minor things. You've worked for a lot of offices, and I guarantee you've had at least a couple meetings where people are like, hey, guys, we really need to take it easy on the stationery. Please just, don't take a whole box of pens. Take 2 pens. We're drinking way too much coffee. Like, yes, we'll get you free soda, but please, like, don't have 12 sodas a day. Share with your coworkers kind of a thing. And then if you were the one caught, like, with the 12 Dr. Peppers, you going, well, Andy does it too. You'd be like, well, Pierre, we saw you. Like, we're talking to you. We'll talk to Andy. We're talking to you.
And they're doing this as I'm wearing the Dr. Pepper T-shirt that I have in my,
Yeah.
closet. What? Like
What do you
me?
mean?
What
Me?
makes you think? Like,
We're all trying to figure out how this happened. Who did
come
it?
on. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, like Sylvester the cat with Tweety Bird's tail, like in his mouth.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
What?
Yeah, no, that's why. Again, and I get trying to defend yourself legally, but when you're caught, especially in sports, you gotta, you can argue with the ref for a minute.
Yeah.
I wasn't holding, and you're like, well, yeah, you were.
And the other thing too, Paul, that I think a lot of people forget about this, especially in the sports realm, the faster you are to contrition, I think the faster you are to get people's respect. It's like if you come out just right away, the more you try to, it's just like anything we were taught as children. The more you try to bury the lie and the more you try to throw dirt on it, it's just going to get worse. The faster you rip the Band-Aid off, the faster people are to forgive you. In my experience with some of these things, and even though I don't like to say it this way, the faster people are to kind of tend to forget about it too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so the news cycle moves fast. So
You know why the Astros haven't shook it completely yet, even though they won a World Series afterwards? The Astros haven't shook it yet because of the way that they responded first. They made people mad, and it wasn't from the owner on down. There was no real contrition. It was, well, there's a lot of teams doing it, which there were several teams that got caught doing it. Maybe none as egregiously as banging on a trash can. Right. Just like Michigan, there's other teams that are stealing signs. We know that. But are you scamming your way onto, a sideline of one of your opponent's opponents and recording it with spy glasses? That's where it's like, all right, well, this is your trash can right here. And it's going to live with you forever, because when you were caught going, look, we had these advantages, there's always, and the thing is to just to admit it and go like, look, there's always people trying to get an edge in sports. We felt we had this edge. We used it. We stepped over the line. We're sorry about it. We'll make people stop asking questions over like, well, Boston did it. New York does it. And, every time that the Dodgers do this, like, okay, that's fine. Tell us what you know, but also so do you. That doesn't mean that it's okay for you to do this thing. That's what I got from the vibe of Michigan last year, was like, so many people do it, okay. And when they get caught doing similar things, then the same punishment should be adjudicated out to them.
You and I have had conversations about this multiple times, and the people that are watching probably don't know this about me, but this about me. If there is one thing that I will absolutely lose respect on people for, is people who think they are bigger than the game. People who think they're bigger than the game, they're above the law, they're above the integrity of the game. Once you lose the integrity of the game, you have nothing. You have nothing. Whether you're a league, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, once you lose the integrity of the league, or whether you lose your own integrity by acting like you are bigger than the game, I have lost all respect for you. I will absolutely do everything in my power to bury you as a member of the media. I absolutely will do it.
Yeah. I mean, bigger than the game, or the minute you treat someone like they're stupid.
Correct.
Like you go like, well, I mean, we're not stupid, man. Like, you're just going to make us ask more questions.
Right.
So ask your lawyer what you're allowed to say that, and treat us with respect.
And they're wasting your time by doing the song and dance of trying to cover it up. And then that just wastes more time. And that just makes me all the more irritated, because if you waste my time, for me as a reporter trying to have to continue to get through these things and waste my own time, I'm going to be pissed at you. I'm going to be pissed at you. I'll remain objective, but I will be pissed at you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Pierre, with the last few minutes of the show, have we caught up on our trash reality TV?
We didn't get a chance to do that last week. I'm not all the way caught up on Big Brother. I'm 2 or 3 episodes into Big this season, so I still have a few episodes to go.
I'm curious. You are a person, a keen observer of the human condition, like myself.
Yes.
And it is honestly, on most seasons, an idiot aquarium.
And this is my first go around in the show for people who are just tuning in. This is my first go around in the show.
So I think that's why I like watching it, because it is an idiot aquarium.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's some people that are really smart and some people that are really athletic and some people who are good socially, but you get to watch like all these terrible mistakes they make, or how, with nothing to do in the house, but play pool and hang out, and there's no books, there's no TV, there's nothing. They're just there in the house for a maximum of 3 months.
It's like a social experiment.
Yeah. It's a social experiment.
Yeah.
How people, I mean, you've already gotten to see there's a contestant on the show named Angela who is bat crap crazy.
Yes. Oh yeah. Okay.
I mean, like sits alone in the room and like talks to herself. Crazy.
You and I have constantly alluded to the fact that when we get on The Amazing Race, that we're gonna be a very dynamic team. But there's one earlier in the season of Big Brother 2. One of my weaknesses in these games is memory games. My short-term memory is awful. When they had the people like spinning in a chair and trying to remember a color combination, I turned over to my girlfriend on the couch like, nope, I'm out. After 2 of them, I said, there's no way. I said, there is no way I can get past 3 of the colors that I can remember. After that, it's over. No chance.
I would have much rather had the other one that the people had to do.
Easily. I'll stick my head in the snakes and the scorpions or the tarantulas. I'll stick my head in that any day of the week in terms of like trying to remember. Memory challenge? No way. Yeah. No chance.
I'd like to think I'm good at some of those, but they do a lot of them where the other thing they'll be is like, okay, which they'll show like a picture and be like, what color hat was Don wearing? And you're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
But you have to, but I think they do, like, if you know the show, people are going to.
I'm better with numbers. Yeah. I'm better with numbers than I am with colors and with words and stuff. So, that's.
Okay, yeah, so when we get to The Amazing Race and we have like a puzzle we have to put together or something like that.
Yeah.
We're good there, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay. The one thing, when we get on The Amazing Race, Peter, what we're going to have to really work out is there are some things that are either artsy craftsy, which is not me or you, and there are certain things that are like you have to put together a motorcycle, also not me or you.
Yes,
so that's where we have to be really like careful about that. Where when we pick those things, I don't know. Like this is,
I remember, and like you have that's the thing because you there's only a certain number that you can do for each person. Like not one person can do all of the challenges. Like you have to kind of, trade off. I do remember that. Yeah. The motorcycle one, putting a skateboard together was another one.
That looked easy. And then it was like, because they're like, how many pieces are there to a skateboard?
Yeah.
There's like 40.
Yeah. Right. and I'm watching some of these things. I'm like, I think about it all the time. It's like if I was on the show, you put yourself in that position. I was like, "Oh, this is where I leave. This is where I bow out of the race, 100%. There is no way I'm putting this together. Absolutely not."
But my favorite ones were like they have one that's clearly easier, and then one that's so hard. And the people like, "Well, nobody's doing this one." We're like, "Yeah, dumbass, it's really hard." They have to walk in like just in a circle around this marketplace and look for the stickers of The Amazing Race and take the thing you asked the guy for. Like, hey, Amazing Race. And he's like, yeah, here's your duck. And then you go. As opposed to you have to find the correct color-coded balloons in this big wall of balloons. And you're the only ones over there doing it and everybody else is done. No. Well,
these reality shows are not for the faint of heart. I can tell you that. You think you can do it. You're on the couch at home. You think you can do it. Then when you get in the game and the pressure's on, you find out what you're made of here.
Okay. I speak enough Spanish to get us by in Latin American countries or in countries that speak Spanish.
Okay.
Spain.
Yes.
I could probably, by the time we get on, learn enough Italian and French to get us by if we're there.
I've got us covered with French.
You got us covered with French.
I've got us covered with the French.
Yeah.
No problem.
My wife, she wouldn't be on the show with us, but she speaks Arabic, so maybe she could teach me.
Did she really?
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
She does. See, it's funny enough, my parents did not teach me that language because they wanted to talk about me behind my back and have me not understand it. So I know a few words. No. But she speaks Arabic? No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were back in Nashville last week, and on Saturday morning I woke up and walked downstairs to the sound of my father-in-law speaking to his family in Arabic. And
it's a startling sound, I would imagine.
Here's the thing. I've heard it. I'm used to it. The first time I remember like waking up and being like, "Hey, is your dad?" Like, he's never mad at anybody. Like, he's like the most relaxed, wonderful guy ever. I was like, "Is your dad mad at whoever he's talking to?" And she's like, "No. Why do you think that?" I'm like, I mean, it sounds like he's mad. And then he put somebody on FaceTime to like, "Oh, this is Amanda's now husband, like fiance, like this is Amanda's fiance," and then he'll like the person on the other side will like say something to him before they say something to me in English. And I'm like, "Oh, what happened? Are they mad at me?" You know, because it's a very fast and abrupt language.
There are a couple languages where German is one of them.
Yeah,
Arabic is one of them.
They're abrupt. So even when you're like, if you've learned French, I've learned Spanish. Yeah. Spanish is either really fast or really like it's musical almost. French the same way. Italian, they're very musical. But then you hear like German, Arabic, Russian, like some of these languages, even when they're saying, "I love you, you're the love of my life," like, I could not do this without you. If you don't know, you'd be like, they're having an argument. They're abrupt. Like, every period is abrupt. Like, the sentence is stopped. You know it. There's no chance you're not going to.
No.
Yeah.
No, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
It's exactly like that. It is exactly like that.
Yeah.
100%.
It's funny also how when we meet people, because, I mean, her mom is as white as snow, like just the whitest lady ever. And then Imad's Palestinian. So, but we'll be out and like we'll be on vacation and we'll meet somebody and they'll immediately, your parents probably do this too. They're like, "Where are you from?" And they're like, "Well, she'll be like, Chicago." She's like, no. Like, where are you from?
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh, okay." And then she tells them like, "Oh, I'm from Lebanon," or "I'm from Egypt," or "I'm wherever." And then they'll ask if she speaks Arabic. And she's like, "Yes, I speak Arabic." And then she's like, "Well, I don't like want to get into it, but like, yeah."
And before you know it, you're having dinner at that person's place that night. And you're like, "Oh, no, I just had a full plate." "Oh, okay, here, have some more."
But see, with Italians, we can kind of tell. You know, if you're in certain places, you know. But, like, if you're just out in a place like Texas where they're scattered, like not New Jersey or New York or, Chicago where they're, like there's a Little Italy. Where there's not a Little Italy, you just don't know until you, like, run into somebody. And they're like, when I met Sean Stellato, the agent, Tommy Cutlett's agent, I was like, Paul Catalina. He's like, "Oh, hey, Avel." And he hugged me. Like, that's how we know each other.
Yes.
You know, that's how we do it. It's different in other cultures, but yeah.
I mean, hey, I can absolutely relate to what your wife is going through. Unfortunately for me, you know, even if somebody is mad at me in Arabic, I would not know. So I would probably need her help with that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, your parents they just got mad at you in English?
You know, so they would, but like, you know, speaking of Mean Girls, we could do that 3-way phone conversation to where you don't even know, like, you know, they're on the phone and I can ask, okay, what did they say? You know, like, you know, just bring in a ringer. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, Pierre, I'll talk to you again next week, my friend. Today on the show, we've got Adam Rittenberg. We have Michael Ford, Team USA sprint coach. He had a really good day yesterday. He's also the head track coach at Baylor, so we didn't really have to go far to get that one. Pat Smith from the three-man front, Jason Shear of Wildcat Authority, and we're going to dive into the USA Today Coaches Poll, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about Michigan. This is 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need